I think that this extended, hugely successful project is characteristic of this place, where civic ideas are valued, where there's a willingness to recognise a good idea and then really run with it. It's my pleasure now to introduce the Premier, the Honourable John Brumby, who will speak about the contribution of Professors Walker and Yencken in transforming the Yarra from post-industrial wasteland to the cultural and recreational heart of Melbourne. Premier.
Well, thank you very much to our Government Architect, Geoffrey London, and to our very special guests today, to Professor Evan Walker and Professor David Yencken. I'm delighted too that former Premier John Cain could be with us today, and I saw John a few weeks ago and mentioned that we were doing this event here today, and John was very, very keen to be here. Our former Minister, Race Matthews, as well, who is here with us today. To our other distinguished guests, to Rob Adams, the Director of City Design, the City of Melbourne, to Lee Harry, of course, the CEO here of the Centre, Kate Brennan, the CEO of Federation Square, and so many other people here today who, past and present, have made such a huge contribution to South Bank and to the revitalisation of the Yarra River. And so welcome to you all, one and all, today. I've just come from another function today, further up the river, and I've been able to walk down here and right along the promenade. And you realise, and I wouldn't have been able to do that back in the 1980s before this transformation took place. And so today is really a story about urban renewal. It's a story about the huge contribution of two individuals who really led the way with a vision splendid, in a sense, of what we could do with the Yarra River and how we could open up the Yarra and how we could reverse decades and decades and decades of Victorians and Melburnians turning their back on the Yarra River. And so we're here for all of these reasons today, and to celebrate a city which has really come of age because, in large part, of the contribution and the work that was started 2 decades ago. And can I begin, as I do, by acknowledging traditional owners, the people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to elders past and present. Today is a pretty typical day in Melbourne. It's going to be a typical weather day shortly. It'll be pouring with rain in a couple of hours. But we are gathered here beside, of course, one of the world's greenest and most innovative convention centres. We are here on the eve of an exciting design festival. We're in the middle of the football season, and of course Robert De Niro's been here as well. He's a regular visitor now every few years, promoting really the emerging industry that we have in the film industry in our state. And I think it's fair to say that in every sense of the word, Melbourne today is a welcoming, exciting and dynamic city. It is a city now which unquestionably leads the world in major sporting events. One of those in which we lead the world is obviously the Australian Open, the Tennis Open. Again, the transformation of the city that took place with the new tennis centre in 1988. And we boast, according to all of the latest research, Australia's best restaurants, bars and cafes. We boast a city with the finest parks and gardens. We boast a civilised city, of world-leading universities, of libraries and research institutes. And we are a city of art and culture, of business, of innovation, of fashion and festivals. And of course, if you round out all of that and bring it together, Melbourne is also a city which now proudly embraces the Yarra River. And we're here to celebrate today the vision and the determination of the many people, but particularly the two individuals with us today who were really the drivers behind this relatively newfound appreciation of the Yarra and of South Bank. They were the people who changed, in a sense, Melbourne's relationship with the river for the better. And so Transforming the Yarra, the story that we're releasing today, tells the story of how Melbourne turned its face, how we turned it back to the waterfront and brought all of this area back to life. And the principal architects, if I can use that term, of this turnaround, and I use the word architect in a professional and a general sense, were of course the then Planning Minister, Evan Walker, and the former Ministry of Planning Department Head, the Secretary, David Yencken. And in the early 80s, the Yarra was it's fair to say was politely described by some as a utilitarian space. But I think those people were being pretty honest. That was a pretty general word. Those who were brutally honest referred to it as a post-industrial sewer. And in a sense, they weren't far from the mark. There was no doubt that much of the riverside in the centre of our city was abandoned and it was redundant. And so today we're launching this story, if you like, which we're calling Transforming the Yarra. And it's a project which turns the banks of the Yarra into a living outdoor museum via an audio-guided walking tour. It's got an iPhone app, and I don't think, Evan, they were around in the 1980s, but it's pretty fancy. I haven't seen this yet, but I'm told it works pretty well. So it's an iPhone app, and it's going to guide us along the 2 kilometres of city centre river frontage. And it's going to reveal how what was truly inspired work of architects, of urban designers, planners and politicians has turned it into the hub it is today, the vibrant hub that it is today, with tens of thousands of people every day visiting South Bank alone. It's as if, of course, Melbourne has finally woken up and, in a sense, I suppose, embraced the real estate agent's mantra, location, 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 because this is just a great part of Melbourne to be. So Transforming the Yarra also charts the beginnings of human interaction with the river, from the first peoples who called it Birrarung to the colonial period and, of course, the waterways industrialisation. And I've no doubt that this innovative tour will be embraced by everyone from locals to tourists to school students. And it represents, of course, in a sense, a permanent reminder, a permanent celebration, a permanent memorial to the people behind it through what is a dedicated internet site. And on a more conventional note, if I can, I will also today unveil a plaque honouring the contribution of Evan Walker and David Yencken to the Yarra's rebirth. And in a sense, that's the thing that I was most looking forward to today. And I was most looking forward to it today because it's often the case in government, in public policy, that you can do some great things. You can take the long-term view and you can make sometimes the hard decisions. And you're not always thanked for that at the time those decisions are made. And I think it's so important in public life when good things are done, when good policy is put in place, when lasting and positive change is made to our community, that we recognise and thank those who've been the drivers of it. And so the story today is important, but the plaque, in a sense, is just as important because it's a reminder of the great work of Evan Walker and David Yencken. And so Transforming the Yarra, I think, is a natural fit with, by the way, with Victoria's State of Design Festival, which, by the way, officially begins tomorrow. And this year, the festival theme is Change by Design. In 2010, the festival delves further than ever before into the pressing contemporary design challenge of sustainability. And I guess, you know, if there was a challenge there in the 1980s about opening up the river and making, in a sense, Melbourne more sustainable, the challenge for us all in this decade is about making Victoria and Australia more sustainable into the future. Sustainable cities, sustainable housing and sustainable transport. And can I say too about the Design Festival, you would expect from a design festival held in the cultural and ideas capital of Australia that the state of design looks beyond today's debate to what could be possible in the future. And that's so important because really that's what Evan Walker and David Yencken did in the 1980s. They looked to what was possible in the future. True to their vision of a better city, making the most of its major natural asset, the revitalisation, of course, of the Yarra River continues. And we see that from the magnificent Melbourne Convention Centre to the rectangular stadium, Federation Square, and of course the upcoming revamp of Hamer Hall. And former Premier Kane and I were there for the last Saturday night, just a couple of weeks ago. That'll be too a magnificent $128 million reinvestment in what is a Melbourne icon. And with that, of course, the banks of the Yarra will continue to support a thriving economic and cultural scene with people at its heart. So thank you for everybody being here today for what is, I think, a really special occasion for our city and for our state. To all of you who contributed to this revitalisation of the Yarra, past and present, can I thank you, but in particular today, we are here for a special reason, and that is to put on the public record our heartfelt thanks and esteem to Professor Evan Walker and Professor David Yencken for their vision and drive and determination to make our city a better place and to bring this river to life in the 1980s. So thank you and well done.